Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever edition of Flying Otters podcast. I'm stand-up comedian Jimmy McCartney, and I'm here with my lovely lady, Kirsten Pacelli, who is a concert photographer, my videographer, and also the tech person behind all of this. So welcome to Flying Otters, the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome.
And we're happy to have you here. And what we're going to be trying to doing on this podcast that's a little different than everybody else is we're going to try to really focus in on major issues and ideally coming up with a unique perspective. Unlike the constant stream of things that everyone's hearing, we're going to try our best to give a different perspective than what other people are talking about. And so for the first ever episode, what we thought would be a great thing to discuss is why we're doing this to begin with. What's the draw? What's the appeal? A lot of people think there's like glamour around doing podcasting, like the idea of being a podcaster. But the real question is, like, why did you want to do this with me, Kirsten? What brought you to wanting to do a podcast?
I just wanted to, I guess, be able to put something creative out there, and this was brand new, so we get to learn things together while we figure this out, and hopefully we can spread some cool words and debunk some bad stuff that the media is putting out there.
Yeah, I mean, from a practical standpoint, the idea of spreading a message that's not tribal of either you're left or right, you're on my side or this side, and it shouldn't be that way. So ideally, from like a fundamental standpoint, we're going to be getting a different message out there to people, right? That's
Yep.
the goal of doing the podcast itself and for what we want to deliver. And then the other question would be is for you personally, not what impact you want to make. It's like, what's the appeal of doing a podcast as opposed to a normal 9-to-5 life?
Well, I was going to say the answer would be to not have a normal 9-to-5 life. That's the appeal to do this.
Yeah, of course.
But, yeah, I was 9-to-5 life for far too long after I graduated from college, and it was a good life, made money, but wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I felt like I wasn't putting enough creative things out into the world, and I was confined to what people told me to do. And I think this is just going to allow us to see what kind of creative limits we can hit and try new things that everybody else isn't doing already. Like, watching YouTube videos is cool to get an idea of what everybody else is doing, but also that helps you see what not to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I would say that, I've noticed, you're really talented. You're good at painting. You do photography. You're now doing my videography for shows that I do. And it just makes sense. You were meant to be in a creative field. And honestly, I feel like way more people are meant to be doing something in that space, but they don't think it's an option. And to answer the same question as to like why I wanted to do this, it's, obviously the idea of getting out of the 9-to-5 life is wonderful, because I think so many people are sucked into that funnel and into that world, and they don't like it, but they don't think there is an alternative, including myself. We're going to talk about it more in another episode, but long story short, for me, I genuinely, when I was younger, did not think it was possible. It wasn't even that I was choosing to not pursue something creative or pursue my dreams. I genuinely didn't think it was an option that was on the table. So I just assumed that, okay, if this is the world that I'm in, what's the best possible route in that? And so for me, that was choosing teaching because, summer's off, you make an impact, great health benefits, retirement, you feel like you're contributing to society. There was a lot of appeal to it, but that's not what I ever felt like my ultimate dreams were. It just wasn't. And so I think that that's where the majority of people are. And hopefully with the first ever episode of this, like, maybe there are a few people that are out there listening that have that same mindset of just like, well, I have to work in this factory, or I have to be an accountant, or I have to be a nurse. And they don't think there are alternatives that are out there. The reality is that there are. If you put a relentless amount of effort into pursuing something, and think creatively around going around the brick walls that are up in front of you, you can eventually create a life that is not normal. I've been a stand-up comedian full-time for the past 3 years now. I haven't had a regular day job. I've only been doing stand-up comedy. Making people laugh has been my only income for 3 years. And nobody ever asked me to do it. Nobody came knocking on my door. I just created it out of nothing. And there's nothing special about me. I'm just a person. And so if I can do it,
I
anyone
hate
can.
when you say that.
I mean, I'm not saying that I don't have talent. I definitely feel like I do, but I don't believe that I'm some sort of superhuman that was just placed in this role of being a comedian. And like, that's how, when you're in the 9 to 5 world, that's honestly how my brain felt. Like when I would see, famous actors or musicians or whatever, you don't think that they were a regular person who started from nothing. You just see them in the final product of being there. So you don't think it's possible for you to be that. So I understand your point. I definitely feel like I am talented, but I don't think that I have some sort of superhuman gift that other people do not. I think it's just mostly about the ability to know that it's possible.
You said there's nothing special about you.
I don't think there's anything super particular. I mean, I think I'm intelligent and driven and like I have skills, and I think maybe naturally I'm comedic.
I think the point is everybody has something special about them. You just probably can't find it if you're working at a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to think about it. Because I'm not trying to demean myself. When I phrase it that way of saying there's nothing special about me, it's not about demeaning me. It's about knowing that everybody else is capable of doing it themselves. So that's just an indirect way of saying what you just said, that, everybody is unique. Everybody's talents are unique. And I think the vast majority of people don't actually go after those things, and they don't pursue them because they don't think it's possible. So the question is, it's like, why do this in particular? Because it's like the idea of, if we could grow an audience and a following and generate revenue by talking to people and trying to either inspire them or giving them a different train of thought, then we don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. and get stuck in rush hour traffic and go to a job where we wear clothes that make us uncomfortable and be fake all day for our bosses who are also being fake all day, and everyone's pretending to be busy when no one is that busy, doing something you don't give a shit about so that you can barely make enough money so that you can just survive and keep this ball going endlessly like a hamster stuck in a wheel that never goes anywhere. These are the thoughts that we had all the time, and it's like, I think a lot of people don't even think it's an option, so they don't actually consider that. I mean, tell me, like, why don't you talk a little bit about when you were in the 9 to 5 world, about what the majority of, like, your coworkers, where their headspace was?
Well, I had coworkers of many forms and shapes and sizes, but some of them had been at the company for 30 plus years already, and that was their entire life. That's all they've ever known, and that's all they ever will know, is that lifestyle. And they could not comprehend how you can get more than 2 weeks off of work per year to go on so many vacations. They also came in the form of just graduated from college and had no idea what the options were, but working for like a Fortune 100 company seems like a pretty good deal. And especially if you're making 6 figures just after college, it's pretty good. But I guess it's a very safe lifestyle. So it feels safe when you're in there, except for if you're worried if you'll ever get laid off, or if you're a field salesperson and then COVID happens and you are no longer allowed in the field.
There's no field.
Yeah. But I guess to answer the question, the coworkers were seemingly mostly robotic, of just programmed to think that this was the way and this is life, and just work a couple more years and then you can retire, and after 30 years you get a diamond necklace or something like that. I don't know. You get some
a little plaque.
No, you get a pin with a better diamond in it, or a couple more diamonds or something like that, and you get some of the executives to give you a clap.
And an extra 2 days off.
On your 40-year anniversary.
Yeah, and an extra 2 days off a year. Yeah. Something stupid like that. And honestly, I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I feel like most working aged adults, like, their souls are dead. Like, they're alive, but are they really living?
You're just selling your time for money. That's all you're doing, is clocking in every single day. And if you put the same amount of effort and time into yourself or into anything that you would want to pursue on your own, if you put that same amount of time and effort into it, there's no way you wouldn't be successful.
And it's also one of the things where it's like, so, okay, that's one side of the coin. And what a lot of people would say is like, okay, so you acknowledge that, working a regular job isn't wonderful. It isn't great. Well, guess what, bitch? You need to make money. So what's the
Yeah.
alternative? So that's where people stop. They see, like, some people might come to a revelation where they see how all of this is either, not progressing me, it's not happy, I'm not fulfilled, I don't feel good, but what's the alternative? So they stop and like they just don't pursue anything further than that. I think that what people should do, it's like if you acknowledge that working a regular job that you don't like is not healthy for you, then start thinking about how can I do something that I do enjoy, that I love, that can make money. So it's not as simple as you can't just snap your fingers and then become wealthy. Obviously, you're going to have to put effort into things. You're actually going to have to take step backs in order to go forward.
Yeah,
right?
there are a lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, you're going to make sacrifices. You're going to have to, like, I think most people pursuing the arts know more than anyone. Like, you're going to deal with rejection, failure, poverty, like not knowing the future, not knowing, there's a lot of unknowns. It's not just pursuing an irregular life is just this wonderful, snap your fingers and everything's wonderful. But it's a question of like, choose your problems. Would you rather have, like, if someone presented these two choices to you, it's like, would you like to A, play it safe and know with 100% certainty you're not going to get a different outcome, and every single outcome in your future is going to be something that kind of slowly kills you, but you'll be safe because you have health insurance and retirement? Or B, have no guarantees whatsoever, but you are going to be committed to pursuing your own path, your own journey, your own creativity, whatever it is that you want to do, it's yours. So it's like you're choosing your problems, and there's no easy answer. But I thought about it from the perspective of, I would much rather fail at pursuing something that I cared about, that I felt passionate about, that I felt like was interesting and worthy of my time, than to succeed in just feeling like I was surviving to pay bills to keep this train going. And I think that's the choice that people have to make, and it's not an easy one. And I would never claim that like what someone should do, because there's other variables, right? Like if you have children and you want to provide for your kids, you want to make sure that your kids are living a good life. It's not just about you anymore. It's like it's about the kids. So it's not as easy as just like, oh, go be a podcaster, go be a comedian, go be a musician. It'll work out great. Because the truth is, for the majority of people, it doesn't. Yeah. And I know for myself, it didn't. Stand-up comedy was never my dream. I worked on a million different other projects that ended up leading me to where I am. But the only reason I got where I am now is because of those previous failures. So if you just like decide resolutely, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to pursue my own path, even if I have to make turns along the river is going to guide me eventually to somewhere that matters.
Yeah.
You know?
I think a good way to think about the whole taking a risk instead of going to the corporate world is, well, just an analogy. It's kind of like playing the lotto, or like, for the Powerball. Like, people would say, oh, if you just, instead of, you really think you're going to win the lotto, you really think you're going to win, like, instead if you just put all that money into a savings account. So instead of playing the lotto and spending $2 to buy a lotto ticket, you put those $2 away into a savings account or a piggy bank instead of playing the lotto and taking that risk. At the end of the day, you might save up enough eventually for a small vacation. Like, that $2 isn't going to make or break you. But it could make you, but it's not going to break you. So, like, you could take that risk, and instead of putting that $2 in your jar to save, just spend it now, because it's like, how else are you just going to come across millions of dollars?
And that's one avenue. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, it's perspective, right? There's no easy answer. There are some people who are genuinely happy working as like a clerk at the DMV. If that makes you happy, that's great. So like, we're not making the argument that everyone should just quit their job and go be a painter in New York City. That's not the point. If you genuinely feel happy and fulfilled and you feel like you're making a difference as an accountant in an office, that's great. If you feel genuinely happy and fulfilled, like a lot of people in my family, being a public school teacher where you're making a difference in the community and you're making enough money to survive, that's great. But if you feel like your soul is getting sucked out of you and you are miserable and every day you are just desperately hoping to get it over with so you can go home and sit on a couch and watch TV of people living the lives you wish you could be living. Like, is that the answer? It's like, sure, you may have health benefits in retirement, but the very job that you're working is causing the physical illnesses that are making you sick to need it to begin with. And then that's not even on like a soul level, right? It's like also getting to the point of, how do you feel in the day to day? Do you feel like your life mattered? Do you want to be 85 years old and like sitting on a bed and like realizing like, oh, I'm glad I played it safe working at tons of tile for the last 42 years because now I can die knowing that I have 80 grand in my bank account. That was a great decision. Do you want to do that? And it's not to say like if you run a tile business and you feel happy and you're enjoying it and you're making money and your kids are able to live a great life as a result of your labor, awesome. But it's really just a question of if your soul is getting sucked out of you and you feel miserable in the day to day, what makes more sense? Pursuing something that matters that you believe in, or just accepting this thing that is never going to change? And so like one of the things that I do, I don't just perform at colleges where I do comedy shows. I also do forums where I talk about this exact thing with the college kids. And one of the things that I say to them is this example, and it's really, really important for people to understand. If you were to be like, say you grew up in a small town, right? In like, let's say you grow up in Topeka, Kansas, right? And your dream is to be a famous Hollywood actor. And you decide that like, oh, okay, I want to go be an actor in LA. And your family and your friends would say to you, and I don't necessarily blame them, like, why would you want to do that? There's less than a 1% chance of success. 99% of those people fail. They end up bankrupt. Nothing good happens to them. They get washed out, and it's just a waste of time. You're never going to do it. What makes you think you're special? You shouldn't do it, right? That's what the majority of people would tell them. But here's the way to think of it. If you stay in Topeka, Kansas, and you never go to LA and you never take that chance, right? What are the chances of you becoming a famous Hollywood actor? Is it 1% or is it 0?
Yeah, 0.
Okay, exactly. So by moving to LA, are you creating a risky opportunity that jeopardizes your safety? Or alternatively, are you infinitely increasing the likelihood of changing the trajectory of your entire life and doing something that you believe in?
Yeah. Most important thing to note is that even if you do take a risk, the safe route is always still waiting there. Like you can still always go back and get a regular job.
Yeah, especially if you have some sort of family support system. There's people that can pick you back up if you do fail.
And if you're miserable at your job, then the worst case scenario is you stay.
Yeah, exactly. And then here's the other thing too. If you want to, in that scenario of thinking of like the person who wants to go to LA to be a famous actor, right? There are ways to optimize that 1% and expand it to 2 or 3%, right? Instead of just going there completely unprepared, you go on YouTube and you watch every single video you can about how to be an actor. You come up with fake scenarios and skits that you act out with your friends. You go to acting classes. You take an acting class at the local community college. If you do, and then you save every single dollar that you have to your name and you stop spending it on stupid shit like drinks at the bar with your friends who just want to endlessly talk about either gossip if you're a girl or sports if you're a guy and never actually progress to anything. Instead of spending $50 a night to do that, you save that $50 over and over and over. When you go to LA and you have 10 grand in the bank and you don't need to get a job on day one to survive, and you have that net so that you can go out and do endless auditions and create opportunities for yourself, you've prepared as much as you can. So it's not as simple as just saying it's like less than a 1% chance. Like, sure, but a lot of those people were completely unprepared. They didn't fully commit. I don't believe in statistics like that. I don't. I believe like if you just relentlessly keep committing to something and pursuing it endlessly, that it's not that it's a guarantee that you're going to get exactly what you want, but you will knock on enough doors and something will open. Something. And whatever that something is, it's better than accepting some job that you feel like is making you miserable as your youth is fleeting, and time is ticking away and your body's starting to hurt and, your opportunities to do whatever it is you want to do are dwindling. The opportunity, I think, is now.
And maybe when you realize that you are, or when you start chasing your dream that you think is your dream, what ends up happening is you meet somebody else along the way who makes you realize a dream that you never even knew you had and an opportunity that you never even knew existed, just because you went to take a risk on something else that's completely different. That, like, you wanted to be an actor and then you ended up becoming a comedian because you just went down that way, but you never would have done any of it if you just stayed a teacher.
Exactly. I would have never lived. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of people view it through the lens of success and failure, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I view it through the lens of it's like,
because how are those measured anyway? How do you even measure success and failure?
are you homeless or like, there's ways you can measure it.
Well,
There are ways, but I know your point. Your point is not.
there are probably some homeless people who, well, probably homeless people feel often that they've had a successful day if they can
Yeah, exactly.
get their stuff, that's a success, and how it's all just dependent on how you look at it.
Yeah, for sure. But what I meant to say is like if you view it through the lens of it's not about whether or not I achieve my initial objective perfectly the way that I envision it, and if I don't, then I failed. It's not about that. It's about this. You have one life. No matter how safe you play it, no matter how correctly, quote unquote, that you play it by doing the supposed right thing, you have one life, and every single one of us is going to die. That is an inevitability. So the question is, how do you want to spend that time? If you want to fully commit yourself to pursuing what your heart is called to, even if you don't get the thing that you wanted, you can look back on your life and say, I tried to live a life that mattered. And I think that's infinitely more meaningful than succeeding in getting what you don't want by not acknowledging your heart's call and doing what you feel pulled to.
Yeah, exactly. What's more successful, getting told no a bunch of times and then getting one small yes, doing what you are pursuing on your own, or getting an award for something that you were on a team for at your big corporate job that you barely put any effort into and you definitely did not care about?
Yeah, exactly. What would you rather do? Like, honestly, objectively ask yourself that question. Like, what would I rather do with my life? Would I rather get an award for being the top sales rep at Tons of Tile for the second quarter in a row? Or would I want to say, holy crap, I saved up every dime that I had and I went to New York City and I got one of my paintings displayed in a gallery? What means more? What is a significant win for you? And also, like, objectively, like, if your life was a story, what story would be more interesting to read? The guy who wakes up and does the same thing over and over and over and over and over and gets 2 weeks vacation, where 1 week he goes to Disneyland because that's what social media tells him is fun and exciting, and the other week he goes home to his family at Christmas where they all fight and argue and he doesn't even have a good time? Or alternatively, the person who is living in like a studio apartment with 2 other guys and is fighting to survive as he's painting endlessly, and he can't even have like a full art studio. He's doing it on his bed, and he's desperately fighting and is able to get a painting displayed in a New York City art gallery, knowing I am an artist. I did something. I created that, and I accomplished something. What means more to the individual? And again, this isn't saying that everyone should quit their job, because if you're happy, that's the end goal. That's what really matters. But the question is, are you happy? And I think, and I'm sure you agree with me, most people are not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if it comes to the end of the weekend and you're like, ugh, then that's all you need. Like, I can't remember a single Sunday where me and you were like, ugh, tomorrow's Monday. Ugh. Because I feel like we just don't look at it like that.
No.
Like, our work is basically just affording the lifestyle that we want to live, and our work is effectively doing the shit we don't want to do so that we can do the shit that we do want to do.
And so, right, at that
like
point,
sending emails and like balancing books and whatever stuff that we try to stay busy with, but making calls and all that stuff, that's work. But
and then what's the reward for that? We get to take a trip to Alaska, and see things that most people don't get to see. We get to go do things like when we feel like.
Create our own job titles. Like, you get to be a comedian. I get to be a videographer. Like, I get to be a traveling videographer just because I made that title for myself. Like, nobody assigned it to me and said, you can be this.
Yeah. You didn't get a degree in something and get approval by someone else. You just decided this is what I want to do. And it's the exact same way, and we're going to talk about it more in another episode about the backstory of who we are and where we came from. But in short, in comedy, there's a very long pipeline to go from being an unknown open micer to being someone who makes enough money to survive. And I completely bypassed that, not based on how funny I was, but purely based on just relentlessly calling and emailing hundreds and hundreds of venues, primarily colleges because they have a big budget. And I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't think that it could, but it did. Nobody asked me to be a comedian. No one knocked on my door and said, "You're so funny, we need you tonight." Nobody did that. No one still does that. That's still very rare. But the point is, it's still happening. Why? Because I created it. And to give testament to what you were saying about when you just continuously follow something, it's going to lead you eventually in ways you don't understand. It's totally true. The only reason that I became a full-time comedian is because I ended up taking a sales job at a TV station to be the guy that would try to get sponsors for TV programs. And I was a sales rep for 3 years. So I learned how to promote myself, and using those sales skills is the direct reason why I was able to call all these venues to become a comedian. So even those quote unquote failures of being set back and having to accept a regular job while I'm pursuing something still directly led to this. So like the life that I'm in right now with an amazing, beautiful chick who's cool as shit, who loves this type of stuff, is a result of making sacrifices and taking chances and pursuing something that didn't have a guarantee. There are rewards at the end of sacrifice and struggle that are not directly related to even what it is you're pursuing. There are things out there that will come to you as a result of your sacrifice and your persistence and your resilience. If you do all of those things, wonderful things will come your way that you cannot even conceive of. So this isn't even just the argument of like you said, success versus failure. You were right. It's not as simple as that, because there are things that are completely intangible. You know, I've told you this off camera many times. The man that I've been molded into is a result of all of the sacrifices of years of pursuing dreams while I was being rejected and unwanted and failing and broke, you know, all of those things. And though the skills and the attributes that I developed along the way molded me into the guy that you were attracted to, you know? And so that's something that is completely unknown. And there's no way I could have conceived that you would be a part of my life as a direct result of those sacrifices, you know? And so it's the same thing for anyone out there that's thinking about pursuing a dream or pursuing their own pathway. There are more things that will come to you that are not directly related to doing that. Like wonderful things, the skills that you develop, the strength that you develop, self-worth, self-value, self-confidence, all of those things.
Also the things you can learn.
Yeah.
Like the amount of things that you can learn is limitless. Like you can't teach an old dog new tricks thing. Like I thought that for a little bit, and I thought that, you know, I'd already gone to college and got my degree and had my job, my corporate job and all that stuff. And then I'm like, there's no way I could become a videographer now and learn all that. There's no way I could start a podcast. I'd never even considered or thought about this until like a couple months after meeting you. But I don't know. I guess that I've learned so much even just in thinking I had a passion for one thing, and then it led to finding out a million other things that I actually was interested in, and then also finding out which things I had zero interest in learning and will forever pay somebody to handle for me, or hope to find someone who can help me with them.
I mean, I think this podcast is a direct testament to that, because you had never been on a podcast. You had never done any of this shit. She was the one who found all of this equipment and got it all squared away and got it up and running. I've been on a bunch of podcasts before, but I've only ever been the guy that just sits down and talks. I've never been the person behind the scenes that knows how to do this stuff. She taught herself this shit, and now this is being created in the real world as a direct result purely from thoughts in a mind, the willingness to learn, and then just the ability to just say, we're going to do it. So this podcast was created from nothing. All ideas, everything starts as an idea. Like, a lot of people don't realize that. Like, when I first started pursuing my dreams, I know it's a little bit corny, but I came up with a mantra of follow thoughts, chase dreams, create reality. So the idea that every physical product or every idea, every podcast, every joke that's told, everything in this world starts as a thought before anything else. So no matter how broke you are, how disenfranchised you are, how isolated you are, it doesn't matter what your situation is. You have the ability to think. And if you start thinking about what it is you want and how you want to do it, and then you relentlessly start pursuing it, right? So from your thoughts, follow thoughts, chase your dreams, right? You start relentlessly attacking those things. As you do that and you keep facing brick walls, and then you mold it and you shape it and you turn in directions and you pivot, then eventually that becomes real, right? So like, I became a comedian just by relentlessly pursuing it. You wanted to start a podcast and it started with a thought, nothing else. And then researching what equipment is needed, how do you set it up, how do you do it? And then eventually what we're doing right now started as nothing but a thought.
And also, my research for all of these items began maybe a week ago, but I don't even know if it's been that much. And I watched a couple of YouTube videos, did a little bit of research on my own, talked to my good friend Corbin. Shout out Corbin. He helped with all this.
Yes, he did.
But seriously, the amount that you need to learn for probably most things to even just get a grasp of what it would take to be involved or to make money doing said thing is very small. Like, I bought a sewing machine and like made a hoodie just by watching a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And so like,
yeah,
you can take something that you know zero about and learn everything about it, or at least all that you need to know about it to start pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, she literally had never done anything, and she just sewed me a hoodie, and it's really good. But she did it out of nothing, and it was just the willingness to try and the willingness to do it. So again, this doesn't mean like if you pursue something or you commit to something, it's going to be wonderful, roses and, what's the phrase? Roses and dandies or something? Dandelions?
Roses and
I don't know.
flowers?
Clearly, I do not know the answer to that. It's not going to be roses and flowers. Let's just go with that. It's not going to be roses and flowers. There's going to be a lot of heartache. There's going to be a lot of setback. There's going to be a lot of failure most of the time. But what matters more? The ability to take the reins of your life and say, I'm doing this myself. Or the ability to just say, okay, I really do not like being a clerk at the DMV, but I'm going to get to retire at 72 years old, and I'm going to be able to live on a stipend of, $1,200 a month. If that does not seem appealing to you in the day-to-day and then the end result, then what is the other option? It's committing yourself to yourself and just pursuing it and not being apologetic about it. I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to stop. There's going to be lots of people that tell you you shouldn't. There's going to be lots of people who say you're not good enough, not skilled enough, whatever it may be. You just have to ignore all of them and your internal dialogue telling you that you shouldn't or that you should be afraid. Ignore all of that bullshit and just say, I'm going to fucking do this. And I'm not going to stop until I get it. And I'm going to pivot if I have to, but I'm going to get somewhere. I'm going to make something of myself because I believe in myself, and my life has more meaning than just the idea of being a cog in a machine and endlessly doing something I don't give a shit about so that I can afford to pay my bills, just purely so I can allow myself to keep doing something I don't give a shit about. That is not a viable option. It is not. And so, like, the message I would say is, like, if you believe that what you're doing is not making you happy and fulfilled, why would you not commit to yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, why would you not? And then here's the other thought that goes along with it. What if you do play it safe, right? There are no guarantees. I had a family member who sacrificed everything. He worked a job that was very, very difficult, very, very stressful, very, very negative, so that his family would have a good life. And it was commendable. It was honorable. He did the right thing. And I'm not saying he made the wrong choice, but he did something because he believed it was the right thing to do. He saved up money and worked as hard as he could, working overtime, crazy hours, at some points doing 100-hour weeks so that he could build up his retirement. And as soon as he retired and thought, okay, I can relax, he got cancer and then died shortly after that. There are no guarantees. Even what is perceived safety of health benefits and retirement and all that other shit is not true. It's a lie. You could get hit by a bus. You could get cancer. You could have a heart attack. Anything. There are no guarantees in this world. The only guarantee is that you're going to die. So the question is, do you want your life to be interesting, or do you want to just feel like you survived? And then when you're 83 years old and you're lying on your deathbed, say, man, I really wish that I could just file 3 more forms at the DMV that I was a clerk at, because that was exciting. Or do you want to look back at 83 years old and say, you know what? I was poor for a lot of that. I struggled a lot of the time. I really didn't have a lot of tangible success, but I took the reins of my life and I did something that I believed in, and I molded myself into a different person as a result of that, and I had an interesting life. I would rather feel like my life was interesting than feel like I'm succeeding in doing something I don't give a shit about.
It also might seem like it might seem easy for us to say, now that we're doing it and all that, and it could seem like a gigantic feat to be able to overcome. Like, people probably hear motivational stuff all the time that says like exactly what we're saying right now, but at the end of the day, it's not that hard. You just have to take small victories and milestones for things. Like, if we want this to be a gigantic podcast, we can't just expect to post this tonight, and then if it doesn't blow up, we're going to be upset about it. Like, we have to make small milestones for ourselves, which say, if we, like we set a goal for ourselves the other day, all we needed to do is buy the equipment. And then if we just get this posted, that's like a milestone and it's something to celebrate. And that's one step towards, I mean, that's a success in my opinion. If and when we post this first episode, that's success number one. And then we just have small successes all the time. And what, if we post this first episode, does that make me a podcaster? I'm a podcaster now. Yeah. I like that.
Because you created it.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can be whatever you want. And I know that sounds cliche and it sounds stupid because they tell you that when you're like 5. But for real, like, now, if you're an adult, now you can actually make those decisions for yourself. And you don't need to be influenced by everybody else telling you what you want to be and what you're good at. And who cares what they see that you're good at? That you're good at Excel. Who cares if you're good at Excel? If you hate it.
Exactly. That's honestly one of the examples that I give when I do the forums at colleges. I say the example all the time, like, if you're good at math, so people say you should be an accountant, okay, great. But what does the day-to-day of being an accountant look like? Do you want to sit in a cubicle and file forms 8 or 9 hours a day, 5 days a week until you're 70? If the answer is no, does it make more sense to make 80 grand as an accountant? Or alternatively, if you enjoy hiking and you love hiking, does it make more sense to make 45 grand a year to be a park ranger, where you're outside and you're in nature and you're helping it, encourage the youth to like go into the park systems, and you get to climb mountains and, groom the trails and know that the public gets to enjoy this because of you? What makes more sense?
Or teaching people how to be an accountant. If that's things, or teaching small businesses how to balance their own books and stuff like that. There's so many other options if you do like being an accountant, but you don't like the company that you're at. Like, working for a company as an accountant isn't your only option if you do want to be an accountant. Like, you can always just be your own personal accountant.
Yeah. And also, alternatively, it's like, if the company that you're working at is sucking your soul, but there's like a nonprofit that has a mission that you care about, make less money to go work for them to feel like you're making a difference in the world.
Yep.
There are alternatives to everything. It's not that there are necessarily a super easy, one size fits all answer to alleviate all of these issues, because there's a lot of them and they're not easy. But the question is, like, what problems would you rather have? I would much rather have problems that I'm facing right now than have the problems of feeling like I was supposed to be a teacher. I went to school to be a teacher. I got a master's degree in teaching. My whole family was. But the question is, it's like, would I rather be fighting to figure out, am I going to be able to make enough money to get through the summer now? Or would I rather have the problem of feeling like, man, I'm in my 30s. I never pursued my dreams. What could I have been? What could I have done? Do I even love my wife? Do I really feel like I followed anything? Did I feel like my life had meaning? Or did I just take the safe route because I was too afraid to take a chance? I am so proud of myself, even though I only did it because I felt like it was my only choice. But like, at 26 years old, I walked away from teaching and the safe route. So like, I'm not preaching anything that I didn't live. Like, I was in that world, and it wasn't even that I was miserable. I had a great work-life balance. My family was in the same town. My friends were there. I got to go to the gym every day and hang out with my friends and see my family and have summers off. I had a great work-life balance, and I actually felt fulfilled doing that day job. But I did not feel like it was what my soul was meant to do. And so I'm so proud of myself that I walked away from like the security and stability of something that was good to take a small chance on pursuing something that was great.
Yeah.
And it was years and years and years of being rejected, being broke, being alone, crying all by myself because no one knows how bad and dark it really is. Being homeless on the streets in Seattle a little bit. A lot of that type of shit is what that I dealt with. But all of the time that I was doing that, I was building the skills that were needed to get to this point. And now, as a result of the sacrifices that I made, I get paid to travel to places all over the country and make people laugh. And if that's not the American dream, I don't know what is. I'm living that, and I'm testament to it. So if I can do it, you can too. And like I said before, part of the reason that you were so attracted to me, which I know is because of the fact of like who I am and what I've done, not in terms of accomplishment of, oh, look, I see you on a stage, you're cool, but you just know like I'm pursuing something that I believe in, and you see like the things that I've done as something that are admirable. So as an indirect result, you know, I always wanted to be in love. I always wanted to be married. I always wanted to have a family. Love was something that meant more to me than anything. And in the course of most of my life, that's something that I didn't have. And as an indirect result of committing to my dreams, she came along. And I didn't even know that she existed. And part of the reason that you're in my life the way that you are is because of the choices that I made with my physical life. And so I'm so incredibly thankful for that. And so the only reason I say all of that is for you to understand that when you pursue these things, if you're going to face rejection, setback, hardship, struggle, all of that shit, but who you become and the things, the fruits of your labor are things that you cannot possibly imagine. You cannot. If you would have asked me 15 years ago or 10 years ago, 10 years ago, at 25, when I was a teacher in upstate New York, if you were to say, Jimmy, you are going to be a stand-up comedian that gets paid thousands of dollars to fly to Alaska with a beautiful woman who's madly in love with you, and she's going to travel all over the country with you and go to 16 states in 4 months, I would say there's no possible way. That happened as a result of making sacrifices and taking chances on myself. And so I think for anyone out there, if you want to truly feel like you're living, it's not easy answers. It's not that everything's going to be wonderful, hunky-dory, but you're going to feel like you're alive, and you're going to feel like you're doing something that matters, and it's your path, not anyone else's. It's yours. And then the results and the benefits of things that will come to you go far and beyond even the tangible things that you hope for.
And also, thank God I was also a self-employed person by the time we met, because that allowed me to be able to travel with you. If I had a regular 9-to-5 job, I would have never been able to do any of that travel. I never would have been able to get the experience and start using my camera as an actual video camera. And I never would have been able to do any of that if I was just committing to a future of, you know, looking down the line of a life I didn't even like anyways. You know, even if it gave me a whole bunch of money, like the whole time I was in corporate world, I was making a lot of money. But it doesn't give you the lifestyle that you want, because even if you're making all the money, you're still not doing things every single day that feel like you're putting back into the world, or that you're actually truly living life to its fullest. So again, I know that sounds cliche, but I feel like it's really important to say that it's not just money that means everything, and sometimes mixing up your passions with that being your only way to make money and that being your source of income can become stressful, and it can cause you to actually have the opposite effect of your passions, where they become stressful and you hate them now because you need them in order to make money, and now you're doing weird things in order to get money. Yeah. Like when you thought that, if you thought that painting was your passion, and now you're just desperate to sell art, and now you're lowballing yourself and losing all of your own confidence because you're not selling art, and you're not doing it because you enjoy it anymore. And
there's no easy answer. It's not that like it's just like this is good and that is bad. There are ups and downs with everything. So it just comes down to a question of like, choose your problems. So a good example is for you, because you were in the corporate world and you were making a bunch of money at a young age. You know, just tell the people, like, what would you rather choose as an option? Like the security and a bunch of money, or the unknowns and feeling happy and fulfilled, you know?
I knew that leaving my job, there was no guarantee with what would happen with my life, but nothing scared me more than having a guarantee of a life I didn't want, which was to stay at my job, have a life that you don't want. You can have money, but, you know, go and get a nice car, but you'll never be able to drive it, kind of thing.
Yeah, the car thing is something I've never understood.
Yeah.
I've never understood that. If you want to bust your ass...
But it's a way to show how hard you work at your sales job and how many cars you sold that month. So.
Yeah, objectively. That's what it really is. But it's like, what's the allure that...
It's like Tom Brady with that ridiculous watch.
Yeah, that thing was not it. That thing was not it. It was so gold, it looked like it was plastic. Like, it literally looked like it was an arcade prize.
Yeah,
like for 200
come
tickets.
Out of like the 25-cent machine in that little clear plastic thing.
Well, don't be ridiculous. It's clearly from the 50-cent machine, not the 25-cent one. But yeah, dude, like those types of things, it's like I have no problem with people busting their ass and wanting to accumulate wealth or whatever. But if you're going to accumulate wealth and sacrifice your youth and happiness for it, use it for something fucking cool. Like, what are we even talking about, dude? Like, the people who like bust their butt at a sales job so that they can drive a BMW. It's like, okay, so the chair that you're sitting in on your 15-minute drive from work to home is leather instead of cloth. And the brand logo on the outside of that car says BMW instead of Toyota. Was that worth it?
And your chances of getting somebody in that car off of just being you, your cool salesman self, probably ain't gonna happen.
Was it worth it? Yeah. Was it worth it? Is it worth it?
That's what more does that car do for you that a regular car that's decent could not?
Yeah, exactly.
And hey, if you can afford it, like, hell yeah, you know, like once we're doing well, like, we're gonna buy stuff. We don't have to be like, we're those people, we're not even gonna enjoy our wealth when we have it. Like, of course we are. But we're not gonna buy like stupid shit.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the pursuit of accumulating a bunch of money, and there's nothing wrong with buying things that you like. But the question is, like, why are you buying it? What do you like out of it?
A house would be nice.
That would be nice. But I mean, it's like, would you, like, if you had, like, let's just say you're a multimillionaire, does it make more sense to spend $100,000 on a fucking watch? Or alternatively, like, investing $100,000 either in stocks or in a new business venture or whatever. Like,
fun fact, most of those people have zero idea how to invest in stocks.
Well,
they pay somebody a lot of money to do that.
I'm one of those people, minus the lots of money. I don't know how to invest stocks, but fortunately for me, I don't have the money to invest in it. But that's the whole point, though. It's like
I'll handle that.
Yeah, that's your department. I would much rather be in a position where I could say to myself, like, okay, in the last couple of months, I've been to 3 states that I normally never would have even considered. I've been there and I've met people and I've experienced things and I've done that, as opposed to saying, like, okay, this was a great sales quarter, so now I can go out and get a BMW and trade in my Toyota. That's all. That's the only point that I'm making. It's like the value of experiences exceeds the value of material in the right context.
Or worse, you have a good sales quarter, and then you go out and blow all your commission like I used to, and then you don't make commission for 2 quarters in a row, and then you're screwed.
You did that? That happened to you?
I used to spend my whole commission checks as soon as I got them. Yes. Every time.
On stupid shit?
No. I mean, I bought a lot of camera equipment. I lived in Brickell. That was kind of, if I didn't make commission, I wasn't able to pay rent. So that, if that puts things in perspective. But other than that, no. I mean, and I lived in Florida and I had a Epic Pass. That was probably stupid, but.
You were also only like, what, 25, 24?
24.
Yeah, dude. 24 years old. I mean, obviously you're going to be 24 and single, you know, like you're not viewing all that money through the lens of how can I use this responsibly?
Yeah. And making, I mean, the commission maxed out at $8,333 a month. So that's when I was getting paid monthly commissions.
You were making that almost every month?
I was making that yeah.
Wow. I can't even relate to that. How did you feel
at 24?
How did you feel in the day-to-day?
I mean, my job actually was good. I didn't have to go into I never had like that office job. I did my very first jobs, but once I got this job, I never had like a go into the office every day type job. So I pretty much always made my own schedule, saw the customers I wanted to see, the ones that I thought would make me money, and the ones that did make me money are the ones I prioritized, obviously, and then the ones that I really enjoyed going to, like we're making new cool tech, stuff like that. But yeah, I made my own schedule completely, and I got to do whatever I wanted. I had a corporate card, could just rack up stuff all the time on the corporate card, and I mean, for what it was worth, the company treated me decently until they didn't, you know. At the beginning, of course, yeah, they wanted to throw everything at me, give me all this money, all this benefits, all this cool training and swag, and, you know, send me to all these games, sporting games and stuff. And then, like, 3-ish years in, Then they changed my pay plan because they noticed I was making too much money. And yeah, they, all their management, they cut the middle management. So like that's why I was reporting to like the VP of the company for a while. And then they decided that they cut all the wrong people and they needed to hire more people on again. And then it was just like the whole company was run terribly looking at it from the inside. But I mean, I guess what they report to Wall Street every quarter is good. So
Did you feel like your time there was wasted?
no,
Not in terms of your life, but I mean like in the day to day.
no, I learned so much there. Like I dealt with, I got to see so many different things and so many different businesses and deal with so many different types of people. Mostly electrical engineers, or CTOs of companies if they were smaller. But yeah, I got to see and deal with really high execs on all different levels, like within the company and then for my customers, for my suppliers. And I got to really learn the intricacies of how big business works. Like I was doing like 25 million, I believe that was a year
25 million in sales.
in sales. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing though. I mean, to give credence to what I'm talking about of like how your pathway is unfolded to you, it's like even though you like being in a world that you didn't want showed you that it's what you didn't want, right? So like if the job didn't progressively get worse, maybe you would have stayed there. Maybe you would have never left.
Well, so it wasn't even the job itself that's what caused me to leave. It was looking at everybody around me and seeing the people who had been there for 30, 40 years and just looking at them coming in every day and every day they hate it and every day is an ugh, you know, but they're doing it. They're making money and it's not that bad. Compared to their alternatives, it's not that bad. And things were different then, so I get it. But like they already have their house that they want. They already have their whole life behind them, whatever. But that's what really made me realize, like, do I want to be that? And then I looked at what could I do to work my way up the ladder at this company? And what does my future look like? If I stay here and I do all the right things, what does my future look like? And that is not a path that I enjoyed because that looked like going to a sales manager, to that manager's manager, to that manager's manager, and then all the way up. And that's just the only way to grow in the company. And so I saw no fun in that. I saw no way to learn new skills. And I just saw it as a way for me to continue to work my way up a ladder. And maybe, I don't know, I don't even think I had hope to make more money as I worked up the ladder because I started making more money than I ended making.
It's such a wild concept.
Yeah.
It's just,
After COVID and all that stuff, like after all this stuff happens, I still somehow was making less money at the end than I was at the beginning.
and that goes to show you there's no guarantees. You know,
Yep.
there's no guarantee, and you didn't even you had like a mild dose of getting
And
screwed.
I was there for like 6 years, almost 6 years. And by the time I left, the people who were getting hired on to do my same position that I was actively in at the time were making more money than me. They got offered like double the salary that I had because mine was like a rollover from pre-COVID times and all that stuff. So yeah, what seemed like a lot of money when I was making it when I was 24 was like the same-ish by the time I was 30. But inflation and also when you don't make more money after being at the same company for like 6 years, you start to wonder. And then you even start to make less. You're like, I'm doing more work and I'm making less and I don't like my job as much. This doesn't make sense. So what kind of future does this company
Would you
hold for
rather,
me?
if someone gave you a magic wand and said, would you rather make $100,000 a year to continue to do what you were doing at that company, and still be in where you were located, or would you rather have the complete unknowns with no guarantees doing what you're doing right now?
No, because I know I could go and get another sales job. Like, people need sales people all the time. I could always go and get a sales job selling something and make as much money as I wanted to make. A sales job just depends on how much effort you put in, which effectively is like owning your own business. Like, it's like doing stuff for yourself. It's how much time and effort you want to put into it. So, no, I would not rather that because when I looked at that before, I was like, the maximum amount of money I can make is X doing this option. Yeah, that's how much money I'm going to make, but that's also there's a max and there's a cap. But doing our own thing, nobody can cap us on however many income streams that we want to have. doing whatever we want to do and making however much money we want to have.
And that's the other thing too. There's so many more variables than just, okay, should I do something just for this amount of money?
Yeah.
What about how happy you are? Like the day to day, how much time of your day is consumed?
What am I going to
by
learn
this?
at that job? What am I going to produce?
Yeah.
What am I going to be doing every day?
Yeah, exactly.
How am I going to come home from work, and like what freedoms will I still have?
Yeah. And that's the question that everyone needs to ask. Like we've said before, this is not, in no way are we saying everyone should quit their 9 to 5 and you know, go be a, you know, an LA actor. That's not what we're saying at all. It's just a question of like, allow yourself the ability to think about things. What do I like this? Am I fulfilled? Do I want to can I see myself doing this for another 20 years without going insane or having a mental breakdown? Can I do this? Do I enjoy this? Do I get meaning out of this? Is it worth it? Do I have more value? Or alternatively, and this is what's more important, does my life have more meaning? And I think the greatest value that we have as humans is our own life. And I think one of the most special things about humans is this. Our skills, our interests, our hobbies, the way we spend our time, the way that we look, all of that is so unique. And it's unbelievably heartbreaking that so many billions of human beings sacrifice that individuality all so that they can fit into this conformed box of what job they should work, how they should spend their free time, what activities they should do,
How
what
they should
food
spend
they
their
should
money
eat.
that they're making at that job that they're giving all their life to.
Yeah, what is a good way to spend your money that you sacrifice your youth for? All of these things are ways of like reducing individuality and creativity to conform into basically just being a replica of what social media tells you to be. Don't be that. Be yourself. Be true to yourself. Honor yourself. Be weird. We love bubbles. We love them. They are a great time. We have a light up Razor scooter. It is awesome. We ride it with cap guns when we go get our mail at night, and it is a great time. And other people might look at us and say, that's immature, you shouldn't do that, or why would you do that? You know why we do it? Because it's fun as shit.
And we have a boat.
We do.
We did get a boat.
Yeah. It may be inflatable, rubberized, and used off of Facebook Marketplace, but it is a boat, and it allows us to go up canals.
And we have launched it multiple times.
Yeah.
Uninflated.
And we have
Mostly
not died.
uninflated.
And we have not died. So it's really just a question of, it's like, what do you want to do? What makes you feel fulfilled? And in what way do you want to spend your life? Ask yourself that question. Most people do not allow themselves to even consider that question, and it's one of the most important ones. A lot of people get lost in the philosophy of like, why are we here? You know, who created us? Is God real? Is this religion right or wrong? I think an infinitely more important question, because it's something that you can answer yourself, is, what do I want to do with my life? And if what you're doing now is not what you want to do, consider an alternative to get out of that rut that you are in and go pursue what you want.
And baby steps to get there. Baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have, like, we're also not saying that if you're in a corporate job or you're working a job you hate, that you should just quit it tomorrow.
Like,
and
just
never
start
go
thinking
back.
about it.
Yeah, consider it. Toy with it. Think of it.
And
Consider
if you're
it.
like most people, you probably already have considered it and toyed with it. You just have no idea what to do or what skills you have that you can actually utilize to make money with. But instead of thinking it like that, just think about the skills that you have, what you like doing, and then how you can use those skills, firstly, to make money, but secondly, to learn other skills that can help you make money. So, like, for example, if I learned how to sew, now they're like, how can I make money off of it? Okay, so obviously selling the clothes. Or I can learn how to add embroidery to it, or sell things wholesale, or just looking at all sorts of different options on, if I really wanted to pursue sewing, I could do alterations, I could do whatever it may be. But all those things are actually doable if you just take the first step and just start. Because the most intimidating and hard thing is thinking that it's this completely foreign idea and this completely foreign concept that you have to try to understand and let alone make money off of. But once you realize that it's really not that hard, like, this setup looks complex, but it's literally a couple buttons that do anything at all. And like, all this looks complex, but once you watch a couple videos and you just learn the basics, it's like this plugs into that, and then you just push go.
If somebody else can do it, you can too.
Yeah.
Any job title that you see someone holding, those are human beings. Some of them are more intelligent or more driven. People have different talents, but they're a human being at the end of the day, and nobody knows everything.
And nobody's perfect.
Nobody is perfect.
Everybody's going to mess up, and if you don't, then you're just hiding it.
And failures are not a setback if you're continuously pursuing something. You may feel like it is, and I understand because that feeling sucks. Case in point, and we're going to get into it in another episode, but like your business that you were starting right before you met me, and then you had the flood where it destroyed all of your inventory and you thought it was lost. But the reality is you learned how to sell things on the internet. So case in point, if this podcast takes off and does really well and we decide that we want to have t-shirts that people can buy, you will know how to do that all on your own. You don't need anyone else because you taught yourself a skill.
I'm already working on setting it up.
Exactly. So this is the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Even if you fail, it is not a failure as long as you continuously fight for what it is that you want. And you can mold it. It can change. My dreams molded and changed infinite number of times. And the entire time I was like, why is this not progressing? Why is this not working? Why am I not going anywhere? I couldn't see it. But the truth was I was learning skills that led me to where I am right now.
Also, that's why it's important to stay adaptable.
Yeah, you're going to have to mold.
Because things are going to change.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you decide that being a stand-up comic wasn't actually your calling, but who knows? I think it is.
The only way that you'll know is if you continue to do it, right? So it's like all of those other venues that told me no. It's like right now, I made jokes about it. I'm in a position where I'm on the phones desperately calling colleges all over the country, hoping that they say yes. Conceivably, if 5 or 10 years from now, and I don't know if that'll happen, but if I were to take off and grow, like those places would be desperate to have me. I'm the same comedian. It's just a question of putting yourself in the right position. So you at home are the same person. You have talents and you have skills. People just haven't seen them yet. And maybe you don't even know what they are yet. And the only way that you will know is by committing to yourself. Stop committing to doing what society says you should or what social media says you should like, what you should do, how you should spend your time, and commit to yourself. What do I like? How do I want to spend my time? What do I want to do with my life? Take the reins, grab your nuts, and say, here we go.
And what's the real risk, really?
I actually thought of that exact thing. Before I left teaching, I literally had that exact thought. If I leave teaching and I go out west and I pursue my dreams, what is the worst possible scenario? And that scenario was going homeless and then having to move back in with my mother to save money to then go out and do the next thing. And both of those things happened. When I first got out to Seattle, I ran out of money and I had to be on the streets a little bit. And then when I moved back from Seattle, I had to move in with my mom to save money. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have had the money to move to Florida, where I became a full-time comedian and I met you, and now we're doing this. So ask yourself the question, what's the worst possible scenario if I quote unquote fail?
And even if you fail by deciding tomorrow that you hate doing stand-up comedy and you don't want to do this anymore, is it really a fail? Or have you already now confirmed to yourself, okay, that wasn't my thing, now I can move on to the next? It's like getting a no when you're in sales. Like, okay, now I can move on. It's not a fail. And then you have all those skills that you learned because you wanted to be a comedian. So now you have all the skills and everything that you learned up to this point to be a successful comedian.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where if I do wake up tomorrow and say I never want to do this again, it's not a fail anyway, because I can look back at 85 years old and say, holy shit, for 3 years of my life, I got paid to make people laugh and travel around the country.
Yep.
Holy shit. I was the last person who should have done that.
You could sit there in your teaching job and look back and say, wow,
I did that.
I did it for 3 years, and now I'm back at this.
Exactly.
Okay, so what?
Exactly.
At least I did that.
Exactly. And so that's the message we're trying to say for anyone that, is or hopefully in the future will be listening. You have the ability to change the trajectory of your life. You have the ability to have a completely different outcome, no matter how bleak or how dark or how lonely or how poor or how depressed you are. You can make massive changes in your life that lead you to a better outcome if you fully commit to yourself and you don't let anyone or anything cause you to stop. Just refuse to quit. And if you keep molding it and going around brick walls, eventually good things that you can never anticipate will come your way. And no matter what, you can look back on your life and you say, I had an interesting life, I committed to myself, and it had meaning. It's way better than the alternative of saying, I played it safe, I never knew who I was, I never discovered my potential, and I never lived a life that had any sort of meaning to myself. You don't want that.
Yeah, if you would have asked corporate Kirsten to start a podcast, I would have looked at you like you were the craziest human on earth. Like, absolutely not. There's no way I have enough interesting things to talk about myself. But this past year of my life has been so crazy that I have plenty to talk about, and I learned so much that I feel confident that I have enough to talk about. But yeah, corporate Kirsten did not have enough interesting things to talk about on cool risks and things that I did, because none of it was different than what anyone else had already experienced.
Yeah, well, guess what? You are the same human being that you were back then. And that's the same truth for anyone listening, that if you feel like, well, those two people are creatives and I'm not, you may be a lot more creative than you realize. You probably just have never, like, tapped into the potential of yourself. And I think maybe that's step one for anyone out there, you know? Just commit to yourself. Spend time with yourself, discovering what are my talents, what are my hobbies, what are my interests, what are the things that I love to do. A lot of people don't know.
Just start trying things. Like, start doing things that you never thought that you would have done.
Go bungee jumping. You know, take a painting class. Do all kinds of crazy shit for you. Don't have any expectations.
Buy a houseplant.
Buy a houseplant and see if you can keep it alive. There are many options in America.
Get a puppy.
You could do
Rescue.
that. Yeah, you could do that. There are many things that case in point. Let's say that you rescue a puppy and you discover that you have this unbelievable passion for saving dogs that have been, mistreated. So you create a nonprofit and you save countless dogs. And then as a result of that, you meet the love of your life who was also a dog person and you had no clue and you never would have met them if you didn't commit to it. That's the type of shit that awaits you if you fully commit to yourself. Along the way of that journey, you might deal with poverty, long hours, having dogs pee all over you, smelling gross and having hair all over you. But you can look back on it and say, I did something that mattered. And so really that's it. If you were in a headspace where you were not happy and you were not fulfilled, I would strongly recommend each and every one of you just purely commit to yourself and then understanding it is possible to have an alternative outcome and change the trajectory of your life by committing to yourself and just pursuing what you enjoy.
Just explore.
Yeah.
Like if you were a kid again, if you were the 5-year-old kid again,
Yeah.
they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
Like, just think about it.
And
You want to be an astronaut? I'm sure you could start looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that there's a list and a line that you can just literally put your name in. Sure, it's that easy.
I think the last thing that I would want to say on this is, for me, growing up and stuff, it's like I never thought that any of this was an option. I never thought this is who I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to do. The reason that it happened was because I just committed to it. And the coolest part, honestly, I still remember this vividly. The first dream that I had was creating my own TV show. And I was so unbelievably excited and happy. It was like every morning was Christmas. When I first started pursuing my first dream, I was, I think, 24 or 25. I just started writing this screenplay and these episodes for a TV show. And I cannot tell you how happy and elated I was to do the writing of that, how much fun it was, how happy I was just envisioning the creation of it. I had no idea what I was doing, and it never would have launched from the way that I was doing it. But that first step is so dope. And you're going to, no matter what happens, if you just commit to doing that, you are going to feel alive again. And that's the way that we're all supposed to feel. And I think that's the core essence of what we're getting at, is we want people to feel alive.
Like me on this podcast right now.
You're doing something.
I had no idea what we were doing before we pushed start recording. I literally had no idea.
Yeah, and here we are.
I knew we were going to talk about why we wanted to start this, and that's about it.
And I could guarantee that for, no matter what happens with this podcast, 5-10 years from now, you can look back and say, holy shit, I remember that first episode we did, and I was scared, I was nervous, I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to say, but I remember it, and I felt alive. You will remember this evening. This is a special evening because it's something new, and you are alive right now. That's what matters, dude. That's the point of life.
Yep.
Is feeling alive and experiencing things for yourself and with loved ones and feeling like you're making an impact.
Doing hard things that people will always say, oh, anybody can start a podcast, anybody can do it. Why isn't everyone doing it? It's hard. It's hard to do things that are scary and unknown, but just do it.
What's the alternative?
It's fun.
What is the alternative?
It's really fun.
Right? So you're having a good time no matter what.
Yeah.
And what is the alternative? Sitting inside and watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians and just wasting your youth by watching other people living a life? do your own thing. And that doesn't even need to be your job. It just means to be alive, you know? That's really the core essence of what we're saying. It's not even trying to be preachy or philosophical. It's really just, or even motivational. It's literally just the first step of consider yourself. You have value. You have worth. You have potential.
Challenge yourself. You're bigger
Live.
than whatever that corporate company's putting you up to.
Yeah, live. And if you can do that, then no matter what the outcome, you are going to have a life that matters. And along the way, you're going to become a completely different person. And you're going to be so proud of all of the things that you did along that journey. And with that being said, I think that's a good marker. Yeah. For the first ever episode of Flying Otters. Ladies and gentlemen, I am stand-up comedian Jimmy McCartney. You can find me on all social media channels with the same handle. It's 6 letters, GYM, like a gymnasium, YIV. And I'm here with Kirsten Pacelli, concert photographer, my personal videographer, and the tech person behind the creation of Flying Otters. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope that you tune in again. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
You forgot my social media.
I didn't know you wanted it. Do you want to do it? Go for it. Go, go, go. Go!
At Kid Kirsten.
At Kid Kirsten. Spell Kirsten.
Kirsten.
I may or may not still misspell that name sometimes.
Holla. Or you can just find his Guy My pages and find me from there. Because I'm in the pictures.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you can find us both.
And we did it.
We did. We did do it. The first ever episode of Flying Otters, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that you all have a wonderful evening. We hope that great things come your way because you all deserve it. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you again.
Peace. Hey.